this is Connor with Straight Six Archery here again with you guys. Today we wanted to talk a little bit about different sight options. So we're talking about mover pins versus fixed pins mainly, and kind of figuring out which one would be right for you. We kind of wanted to give you a little bit of a rundown of a few different sights, the advantages to fixed pins and mover sights on their own, you know, that whole sort of a deal. So we've got a Black Gold Rush here, which is just a fixed 5-pin sight. The advantages to sights like this, not just this one, but anything like it, it's going to be simple. It's going to be easier to set up because you don't have to worry about a sight tape, which we'll get into. There's a lot less moving parts on it. Generally, they're a lot lighter too because they are so simple. There's not a lot going on with it, and that helps you save some weight for sure. When we start getting into mover sights, there's a few different things here. This is a CBE Engage 5-pin. Great moving sight here. A lot of micro adjust on it. With these guys, you do have a tape here. This is where your sight tape is going to go, which is going to show you what yardage you are hitting once you start dialing out your sight. These guys are going to be great for giving you a little bit more of an exact distance at range. A lot of them, instead of having just a 10-yard gap, when you dial this down, you can get it exactly to 62 yards, let's say, or 74, you know, something very specific. Especially in those further distances, your pin gap gets wider, giving you more room for error if you're trying to split a pin on a fixed pin sight. So it can make a big difference. The advantages to these are it's going to let you practice at a further yardage, which, you know, it sounds a little off, but if you're shooting at 70, 80, 90 to practice, your room for error grows, where if you're a little bit off, it's going to show a lot further at yardage, which will help you dial things in. And if you shoot at 90 to practice, a shot at 30 feels like a chip shot. Like you're on the putting green on a flat ground, it's no problem. A lot of guys are going to use these in you know, certain special circumstances like Total Archery Challenge, Mountain Archery Fest, whatever it might be. You really want to have one of these for that because you do have shots out to 100 most of the time. And 100 yards with a 5-pin fixed sight like this, you're guessing at best. Unless you've had a lot of time underneath that sight, having a mover is just going to keep you so much more precise, and that's really what you want. They can also really help with follow-up shots. So if you take a shot at 40, and then you see that animal run out, and now it's at 70, and you want to get another arrow, it's stopped, it's broadside, you've been practicing, put your pin to 70, let it eat, you're going to have some success that way, and it really does help. We do have another sight here called an Option Archery. This is an option 6. What's really great about these guys is you can open up this housing, and instead of having your whole sight moving, you have one pin that as you move it, moves that one pin, which is awesome. When you know you're not going to be needing that, keep it closed, and now you've got a fixed 5-pin sight, and you can put your mover wherever you'd like it. So if I'm 20 through 60 on my 5 pins, and I move my mover down, I can put it down at 70 yards when I'm at rest. And I know that I'm going to have a 70 pin essentially. These are really sweet to be able to give you a little bit more versatility. You've got your mover pin, and it is a single pin when you're doing that, which still functions with the housing closed or not, which is nice. And you still have the 5 fixed pins if you need to take a quick shot where you don't have the time to dial that sight out, which is great. A lot of different mover sights have some options with their number of indicators and pins. So this is a 5-pin mover sight. They do make them in 2-pin, 3-pin, single pin, 5-pin, 7-pin, kind of all sorts of options. What I run on my Matthews here is a Spot Hog triple stack, and that is 3 pins in a vertical configuration. So most sights like your CBE here are all going to be horizontal. That triple stack is vertical, which gives you a really good sight picture. And what I really love about that sight is it gives me 3 indicators. So I have one for every pin. What that means is if I'm normally at 20, 30, and 40 on my 3 pins at rest, when I dial that down, and let's say my bottom pin is 60, it shows me what my top 2 pins are as well. So I know my middle pin will be 52 at 60, and my top pin will be about 44. That's so advantageous to be able to show you where you're hitting even if you dial with all of your pins. It takes a lot of the guesswork out, and I really like something like that. It's good for the spot and stock sort of stuff that we do here in Montana. A lot of big game elk hunters are going to be spot and stock. There are some guys that do tree stands, but that's a lot more of a Midwest sort of, or Mid-East, Midwest, whatever it might be. That'll kind of give you more options for guys that are hunting out of tree stands, where you know you've got openings at 20, 30, 40, whatever they might be. it's a lot more reliable to run a single pin there, especially because you're elevated. Your error with movement is a little bit negated by that because you're not so much in the deer's eyesight. So having a single pin lets you be very, very precise with your yardage and get the job done that way, which works really well. So now that you know a little bit about them, we kind of want to talk about how to pick out what might be best for you. The number one thing I say to most guys is know your limits. That's going to be one of the biggest things. I always ask guys at the shop that are getting new setups, are you ever going to shoot out at a further distance than 60? Is usually my first question. If you're never going to be stretching out like that, you don't trust yourself, you haven't been shooting for a long time, maybe you're not the most experienced guy, a fixed 5-pin sight is going to do pretty much everything you need it to do, and that's what most guys are going to go with. If you've been shooting for a long time and you know that you can stretch that out further, you want to be shooting far, you're almost always going to get into a mover pin sight. You can always split the gap and go with something like the option because it is a great, great option. Sorry. Just to kind of get you with a couple different things. Along with that, knowing your situation, just like I said there, if you're going to be spot and stock, a mover sight is going to be a lot more advantageous than a fixed pin. But if you're going to be in a tree stand, maybe going to a single pin mover if you know your yardages, or a fixed pin will still work really well because it's less adjustment and it's just going to get the job done pretty easily. From there, you do have a bit of variance in cost. So I know this black gold rust standard here is about $150. Sometimes it can go up a little more whether you have third axis or if you are getting it on like a dovetail or something like that to fit in your Matthews, whatever it might be, or the Picatinny mount for Hoyt. Those are going to be roughly around $150 to $250 on most mover pins, depending on the features that you want, like micro adjust. For a mover pin, they are quite a bit more expensive. Most of the time your cost is starting here around $250. Can go all the way up to $500 when you get into the big dogs. So if cost is a concern to you, that's something you'll want to think about quite a bit. When you do pick one out though, if you know what you're looking for, if you want to go with a fixed pin or if you want to go with a mover, you really want to get something that's sort of the best that you can afford. Obviously, if you're shooting a mover, you don't need to get a $500 sight if you want something that's just going to kind of get you into it. It's unnecessary. If you want to get really, really in-depth and get those great features, they are worth it. It's really about knowing your limits and what you do. If you can spend that money and you're looking for something that high quality, getting a $500 sight will help you, for sure. But generally, getting the best that you can afford is gonna help you out in the long run, and it's not gonna, hinder you in any way, shape, or form. So that kind of gives you guys a good idea of what to look for in a sight and how to help pick one out for yourself. Keep that all in mind. If you have any questions, obviously give us a call or stop in at the shop and we'll help you out. Thanks a ton for watching. Have yourselves a great day.